Good morning, guys. It's been a while since I've seen you. It is Tuesday, March 24th, I think. um, this one's gonna be a really quick one. This is by the way, this is a video for bio. We're gonna be starting a new unit today, so I hope you guys are doing good. I'm gonna make another video just to kind of catch up with you guys. May go on a live stream later to just say hi. Um, but I actually have to jump on a live stream for AP Bio in a little bit. So just trying to get this video out to you guys so you know what to do for today. First thing, we are going to be starting a new unit today. So if you haven't already, go on Canvas and download a new assignment sheet. It looks exactly like the ones that you're used to, but you're going to need to print it out. And there's actually two per sheet. So you can print it out, cut it in half, and just glue one of them in. And then today we're going to be going into assignment number 1. And it's actually a handout. And I have to say before we start any of this, big shout out to Miss Michaud. When all this shutdown was going on, I was kind of panicking because we do a lot of notes in class, right? And so she was really cool and hooked me up with a lot of her resources and handouts. And especially since I have a baby due in 11 days, I'm not trying to recreate everything. And so really thankful for her for sharing the resources with us. So we're going to be using a lot of her stuff in the next week and a half or so. But let me show you what it looks like. You're going to be downloading and printing out this worksheet. It is a full page. If you can figure out how to make it a half page, that'd be cool, but you can print out a full page and just fold it in half. And you're just going to fill this in as I go over stuff today. If you don't have a printer, no problem. Go ahead and just do your best to try to copy these diagrams into your notebook. Obviously, you don't need the whole picture, but at least the parts with the text on it, and maybe this diagram here that we're going to talk about. Just do your best to adapt to that. Okay. So what I'm going to do today is just kind of get you guys started. I'm going to go kind of fast. So if this is a video, so if it's too quick for you, just go ahead and sorry. Faces in shadow. Just go ahead and pause the video or rewind it and rewatch stuff as you need if it's too quick for you. Okay, so we are going to let's see. Let me move this over and I'll get this in the full screen. So it's not really a PowerPoint per se, but okay. Sorry, just getting it set up. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. So the assignment sheet, your unit and topic is going to be ecology. And I forget what unit this is now. Is it 7, 5, 6? I don't know. Check the last assignment sheet, whatever unit it is. Just add the next number to it. That's the ecology unit. So let me switch over to the PowerPoint here. It's really just a PDF, but you can still see everything, hopefully. So actually, you know what? I think I can do this. I'll just stretch it out a little. Make it a little bit bigger. Okay, it's better than nothing. So ecology. I guess the first thing to talk about is what is ecology. In the last unit on evolution, we saw how important the environment was in shaping things like natural selection, and how the environment is the one that presents all those selection pressures that kind of determine whether an organism can or can't survive. And so really what we're looking at is an interaction between living things and their environment. And that's essentially what ecology is. Okay? Ecology is the study of interactions between living things and non-living things. And why is this important to us? Because all of us are living things, and you have to understand on a day-to-day basis how you're interacting with the environment around you. Now, when we think of environment, the word environment, it can mean really different things to different people, right? If you look at us in our city environment, you think about what's around you. It's just like other buildings and streets and cars and other people and parks and things like that. But keep in mind that for most of the history of life, the environment didn't look like what it looks like right now. Right? The environment is probably more like what most people think of when you think of the environment. You think of mountains and trees and lakes and rivers and beaches and oceans and just things kind of in their natural state. And so, for purposes of our discussion, that's kind of what I want you to visualize when we think about ecology and think about the environment. Is kind of before humans came along, what did things look like and how do they work? And the reason I want you to do that is because after we get back from spring break, um, we're going to be going into the human impact unit and looking at things like climate change and pollution and overconsumption. And for that to really sink in, you have to understand what the earth looked like and how did it work before humans got here. And that way you can understand what problems there are and what solutions might look like. So again, when we're going through ecology here, I kind of want to go at it through the lens of like, how does nature work before like all of human civilization? Okay, so let's go ahead and jot down some things. And again, the worksheet you're filling out is going to be this one right here. So ecology, this is your middle box right here, is defined as the study of how organisms interact with each other and their environment. Okay, you can pause the video if you need to and jot that down. Now, what exactly is the environment? Well, the environment is split up into two aspects. You have all your living things, or living organisms, and those are your biotic factors. Okay, so you can fill that in on the box that says biotic factors on the left side right there. But I also like you to write down some examples of that, because when we think of living things, most people just think of humans and animals, maybe plants, but there are a lot of other living things that are part of the biotic factors in an ecosystem. And that's going to include fungi, it's going to include protists, which are like microorganisms that live in the pond water down here. That's also going to include bacteria that are found everywhere, in the air, on the soil, in the water. They're even inside of us. You have more bacteria in your body than you actually have your own cells. So the biotic factors are the sum of all those things put together. On the right side of the sheet, you see the word abiotic factors. And remember, anytime we put the letter A in front of something, that means it's not that, right? So if something's asymmetrical, that just means that it's not symmetrical. So an abiotic factor is something that's non-living, and that's going to include all the other aspects of the environment: light, water, soil, the atmosphere, climate, rain, basically all the aspects that we interact with and depend on a day-to-day basis, but not really considered to be living. Okay? And one interesting way you can look at it right now is like with the shelter in place, right? With all the virus stuff going on right now, we are having to think about like what are our essential needs, right? What are the basics that we need in order to survive? And I think most people would argue that the absolute basics that you need are food and water, right, and air. And a place to stay. And so if you I'm not going to list all of it, but if you think about the things that you've been needing this past week to stay alive, ask yourself which of those things fall into biotic factors and which things fall into abiotic factors. I think a lot of us might think at first that everything that we depend on is abiotic. But if you think about all the food we eat, right, whether it's a vegetable, whether it's a piece of meat, or if it's bread or pasta, all of it actually goes back to a living thing. And so we actually depend a lot on living things more than we realize. Okay, so biotic factors, really important. Now in ecology, there's quite a bit here, so you may want to pause this and just copy this into the big table. This is the main one in the middle of your page, and you see the picture there too. Ecology is split up into levels of organization, and when we want to understand ecology, what we have to do is break it down into chunks that are chunks that we can study and research and keep track of. And so let's start with the biggest chunk and then work our way back. Okay, the biggest chunk, which is at the very top of your list here, is the biosphere. And the biosphere is literally just means circle or sphere or ball of life. So what is the ball of life? That's the planet, right? So the biosphere is basically all the areas of the planet where any living organism can be found. You can see that right here at the top. And that's going to include the air, the land, and the water, right? That's where all life is found. So that's the biosphere. Now within the biosphere, we split it up into smaller areas called biomes. And you might have heard of that word before. We're going to loop back to this at the end of next week. But biomes are areas of our Earth that are characterized by the climate that they have. So what's the temperature and how much precipitation, in other words, rain or snow, that they get. And the reason why we categorize it by that is because if you live in a desert in Africa and then you compare that to a desert in South America or in Asia, deserts basically function very similarly, right? No matter where they are, no matter what continent they are. So the next level down is to kind of like split up by biomes and understand the dynamics of how rainforests work, or how deserts work, or how the tundra works, or wetlands, and taking what we learn from that in one particular area and then expanding that to other areas of our planet. The next level down, getting more specific, is within biomes you have ecosystems, and this is where we're going to spend a lot of our time kind of talking about how ecosystems work. An ecosystem is specific to a particular area, and when you study an ecosystem, what you're looking at is all of the living and the non-living things in the area. Okay, I know the text here doesn't say that. It says includes habitat and all communities in an area, but there's a little bit missing from that. So an ecosystem is defined as the abiotic plus the biotic factors put together. So if you're an ecosystem scientist, you are going to look at the living things and look at bacteria and study the bird populations and the fish and all that. But you're also taking samples of the water, of the soil, of the air to see how those abiotic factors are interacting with the biotic factors. So that's the ecosystem. The next level down is the community level. And this is where, for the first time, we kind of ignore, not to say that they're not important, but we're just ignoring for now and setting aside the abiotic factors, and we're just focusing on living things. Okay, the community is defined as all the populations living in a particular area. These populations they're all the species that you can think of. So plants, animals, fungi, protists, bacteria, even a small group of organisms called archaea. The community is basically, it's not what we think of when we think community. Like if you think of community, you're probably just thinking of like people that live in your neighborhood, right? But in a biological standpoint, the community is everything that's alive in your area. So it's not just the people, it's the pets, it's the birds, it's the plants, and everything. I've kind of already listed that. So community is basically all the abiotic stuff. Within a community, though, we split it up into smaller groups by what kind of species they are. And when you're talking about a group of species that live in the same area, that is what we define as a population. Okay, so when we talk about a population of animals, you actually don't ever talk about it that way, right? We never say like, oh, the population of animals in Yellowstone Park. That's way too general. You have to say a population of mule deer or elk or this certain species of gray wolf or whatever it is. Populations are designated by groups of species that live in a certain area. Okay, and then finally, and rarely, sometimes the research can get down to the individual level. So out of that population, we might pick one individual and kind of track them and follow them and learn about their life cycle and their patterns, at what they go through. And what we're hoping is that by studying that individual, we can better understand how the whole population works. So these are your levels of organization for ecology, and we're going to be going through quite a few of these different levels, but just understand at the end they all kind of come together to form what we know as this planet Earth, and as far as we know, this is the only place that life exists. So this is kind of what it takes to build up a system of life. Okay, the last topic that we're going to talk about here before we wrap up is the topic of energy and nutrient flow. And I will go over this in more detail in future lessons. But for now, a really important thing to understand about ecology is that one major thing we study is how energy and nutrients move around. Okay, and you can do this for yourself. If you, again, think about like what you've been eating and what you've been putting into your body over the past week and what's been coming out of your body. I know that sounds kind of weird this past week. Really what it comes down to is the movement of energy and nutrients. And so I know it's all right here, but some really important things you want to focus on. Number one, energy moves in one direction. You can see it right here, whereas nutrients are constantly recycled. Okay, so what does that mean? That means that, let's say yesterday you had a slice of pizza, right? That pizza you're bringing in for two things. You guys remember the very beginning of our year, we started off with the story of biology, right? We said that in order for baby to survive, we have to give it chemicals to provide it with energy and nutrients. So here are those energy and nutrients. When you eat pizza, the starches, the fats, the those chemicals in the pizza, they actually get broken down and the energy is released, and that energy is used to keep you alive, right? But the thing is, once you use that energy, it's gone, it's done, it's used, it can't go backwards, right? Once you get the energy from eating a piece of chicken, you can never give that energy back to the chicken. Once the chicken eats the corn, The energy can never be given back to the corn. Once that corn takes energy from the sun, the energy can't be returned to the sun. So the movement energy is always in one direction, and it always starts with the sun, and then as we move down the food chain, that energy gets used and it's lost, and then we never see that again. Okay. Now nutrients, on the other hand, are different because when you go back to our pizza analogy here, when you eat that pizza, you are getting you are getting energy from it, but you're also getting certain nutrients, carbons, nitrogens, phosphorus, sulfurs, all the actual atoms that make up the pizza. When you eat those atoms don't get broken down, right? What the energy comes from is by breaking the bonds between the atoms, but the atoms themselves are still there. You guys may remember from middle school that matter is never created or destroyed. So when food comes into your body, that matter, the atoms actually become part of you, right? And that's how you can grow from a 7-pound baby to a 100-pound, 120-pound person, adult, because the atoms in your body actually come from your food. Now, I did say they get recycled. So how are they cycled? Well, at some point we all die, right? And so when any organism dies, what happens to their body? It decomposes, right? If we didn't have decomposition, anytime something or someone died, their body would just sit there, either above the ground or under the ground, and it would stay there forever. And those atoms can never be used again. So thankfully, because we have decomposition, those atoms can get broken down and back into the basic parts. The nutrients goes back into the soil, and now it's available to the ecosystem to use again, right? So plants can take the nutrients from the soil, they can take the minerals from the soil and use it again. And so this is kind of what, Mufasa, if you remember watching Lion King, Mufasa's talking about the circle of life and how nutrients, how the antelope, even though the lion eat the antelope, at some point when the lions die, he says we become the grass and the antelope eat the grass. So Mufasa is not really talking about energy at that point. He's talking about nutrients and how nutrients are constantly being reused. Another way you can think about it is like the Earth is like a little sphere, like a snow globe, right? And the amount of chemicals on Earth never really changes, right? With the exception of like the occasional meteorite that comes in, or like we fire off like a spaceship, into space. The number of atoms, the number of carbons, of oxygens, of nitrogens on our planet has basically stayed the same forever. All that's happening is as life continues for billions of years, the same chemicals are being used over and over and over and over and over again. And so it's kind of a weird feeling, but it also should make you feel kind of connected. But if you think about this, like the atoms that make up your body, if you go back through history, they were part of other people, right? There are carbons and nitrogens in you that that made up the muscles of a person 1,000 years ago, or of a dinosaur, or the water in your body could have been water that was being sucked up by the very first plant when plants evolved millions of years ago. So those same atoms are being reused over and over, and that's why nutrients are cycled. And what allows for that cycling is that we have decomposers, right? You may want to jot that down, but decomposers like bacteria, like worms, like fungi, they're the ones that actually allow a body, whether it's a human body or a tree, to break down back into its basic parts and let those nutrients be recycled. So we're going to talk more about energy flow and nutrients in other lectures, but for now that's kind of a preview. So if you haven't already, make sure you jot down these notes. These are going to be in the bottom left corner of the worksheet, and then you see the same diagram here that's kind of blank. I would go ahead and just pause the video and kind of fill this in here. You can write these in for now. I'm not going to talk about it because I got to run, but fill these in with primary, secondary consumers, and we will talk about that another day. Okay. I know it's been a while since we've had some updates, and I really do miss you guys. So I may jump on later today or tomorrow for like a spontaneous live stream. So keep track of your notifications on YouTube. At the very least, I will see you guys again on Thursday. But it's we're going in our second week of this, and I know a lot of you guys are getting kind of stir crazy, but it's super important that you guys follow the rules. You stay inside. If you haven't been following the news, please do. There's a lot of really important information, not necessarily from the federal government, but at least locally, on the county level and at the state level. There's a lot of really important things that California's doing, and since we're one of the earlier states to get coronavirus, a lot of other states are kind of looking to us to model correct behavior, and so the authorities are asking us to stay inside. Please do that. Okay, it literally will save lives, and it'll slow down that flatten that curve and slow down the rate of infection. The sooner we can follow the rules, the sooner this can all be over, and we can go back to living our normal lives. All right. Hope you guys are doing well. Take care. Stay safe out there. I really, really, really miss you guys. And like I said, I will try to jump online and say hi another time. I just got to get to this live stream. So if you have any questions, post a comment, or you can email me. But that's it. Pretty easy day. All right. Have a good one, guys. Bye.